3, 2, 1. Welcome to the David the Dog Trainer Podcast, episode
128.
128. Well, we just spent 15 minutes with some technical difficulties on our end. It's been the first time in probably like 100 episodes that we've had technical difficulties. So let's hope that everything works out and it doesn't happen again.
We need one of those, days since last incident.
Yeah, right? 0 days.
0 days now.
0 days. Josh, what is new?
All right, well.
What's that thing on your shirt?
This is a test print for Coveted Apparel, which is the clothing company I'm starting with a family member. And we got some test prints for a hype video we shot, which I showed David, and he thought it was sick. We did that on Tuesday. So it's nice to, when you talk about something for, like 1 or 2 years, and then you finally have something tangible in your hands of the thing you've been talking about.
It's right there.
Yeah, it feels good. It feels good. So big things are coming with that.
Give me the elevator pitch for Coveted Apparel.
The elevator pitch.
Give me the elevator pitch. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to bring back to the apparel world?
I just want to make high quality, custom fit athletic clothing that you can wash 100 times and it still fits perfect.
Some might say after washing it 100 times, it fits better.
Yeah. Yeah. Unlike, every hardcore band shirt where you wash it once and then it's a belly shirt.
I'll tell you, there are some shirts I have, though, that after washing and drying it like literally 500 times, it's like the most comfortable piece of clothing that I own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably doesn't look as flattering because it's all like, stretched and like,
Yeah.
But it is it is fitted to the way I like it.
Yes. But I just want to deliver a high quality product that I would use.
I love it.
Yeah. So it's going to be a large uphill battle. I'm going to have to fight the boss.
The boss.
Yeah. Everyone go listen to Alex Hormozzi's latest YouTube video, and then you'll understand.
And once again, we already talked about that for about 45 minutes, too, which probably would have made a very good podcast episode, too.
Yeah, it really would have.
Give us the cliff notes on the boss. What's the boss?
The boss.
And how could our listeners apply it to their life?
Yeah. The Alex Hormozzi's version of the boss of life is when things get difficult, the hard work, when it's really tough and it seems like it would be easier to quit than to continue on. And that's when you lose to the boss. Or you fight the boss, you work through it, and you get on the other side and you reap all the fruits of your labor. That's
the Cliff Notes version?
That's the Cliff Notes, basically.
What mistake do people make when facing the boss?
Oh, yeah. They run away.
They run away from
it. They can't beat the boss. They run away and try to find a way around, but it's always another boss.
There's always another boss there.
Yep. So you got to face one at some point.
Yeah, it was an interesting conversation we were having because the way that Josh, you watched this video obviously, or you started watching this video today, right?
Yep.
And the premise of it is a lot of people will be working through life, obviously, right? Facing adversity, facing struggles, stuff like that, and all of that kind of stuff is kind of the boss, right? The boss of life is you got to get past these massive hurdles to get to your next tier of success, right? And a lot of people, as they're facing those first couple of bosses, right? As they're facing those first couple of like major hurdles, right? Or major struggles that they might be experiencing, whether it's just like in life in general, right? In their business and whatever it is that they're trying to do, they'll kind of, be tempted to look away towards Joe Schmo over there that seems to be doing everything just great. And they've already faced a couple of bosses, but we don't know that. We just look at, wow, they're succeeding with that thing. So maybe this is really hard.
Yeah.
Maybe I should stop this and I should try to divert my attention towards that thing, right? And what inevitably happens is those unseen bosses that Joe Schmo over there has faced to get to that point are right there in your way again that you have to overcome.
Yeah.
And, ultimately, if you're going to achieve anything of noteworthiness, you are going to face some serious adversity and some serious hurdles, and you got to be prepared for that. And you got to feel confident that by working hard through those moments of adversity and not stopping and not being tempted by all those other things that seem so much more nice, we'll just say.
Yeah.
That you will get past it and you'll achieve that next level.
Really hits home to that the grass isn't always greener on the other side.
I mean, that's really what it is, right? And the interesting thing about this is, like, all these concepts we're talking about, right, or we were talking about earlier, like, it's not new. You know what I mean? Like this is not like Alex Hormozy like brought this idea to the world and nobody's ever known it before or anything like that. It's just like sometimes people have such a great way of articulating a point in a way that makes it resonate to the stage you're at in life.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And whatever it is about the way that he presented it, and maybe it's where you're currently at in your journey towards some of these types of things, like it was able to like really hit home.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then another good one was that the other podcast that I sent you in text a few days ago. Mm-hmm. The Hard AF.
Hard AF with Andy Frisaz.
Yeah.
He was look up his name here.
Yeah. Just a real quick note on that. One of the things he was talking about was how
Frisella. Andy Frisella.
Yeah, Andy Frisella. He was talking about how people sometimes don't even start anything because they look, oh, well, this guy had, rich parents, so he had more capital to start out with, or this has been done a million times. And he was like, he literally said, motherfucker, everything's been done already.
Yeah.
And it's just, how are you going to make it different? How are you going to, plug your way into this? Like, no matter which path you go, it's been taken pretty much at this point, in society. So don't let that hold you back, basically.
And to look at it even deeper, like it all boils down to like mental roadblocks are very real. Most of the roadblocks you face or most of the bosses you have to face in life and stuff like that, like it's 99.9% of the time, like yourself getting in the way.
Yeah.
The solutions, the things you need to do, but like we make up these stories of like, oh, well, somebody else did it, so like why would I be able to do it, right? Or I don't think I'm good enough to get past this stage, or maybe I'm not cut out for this or whatever, but in actuality, like what to do, and you need to just like turn your brain off and just do it sometimes.
Yeah. Especially like in a saturated market like, I guess, clothing apparel is, there's 385 million people in the United States, roughly. I think there might be more now. But that's just in the United States. That's a lot of people that have to have T-shirts. Mm-hmm. Like, probably 100 million of those are working out at some point. And that's just in America alone. We're not talking about the rest of the world, which is what? Are we at 9 billion yet?
I have no clue.
I have no clue either. But,
I'm not up to date on the census.
So there might be like 3,000 to 5,000 clothing companies, but they're servicing billions of people.
Yeah,
there's always going to be a market, no matter what you're making. Whether it's Topo Chico, or clothes.
That's a funny point you just made, because like let's apply this to dog training for a second, right? And apply it to a lot of our listeners who might be dog trainers themselves, right? I would say I sometimes, getting back to like mental roadblocks, like I face shit like that all the time. And like sometimes I'll like, we'll have a really good year or like a really good month or something like that. And then I'll just be like, damn, I was like, there's no way we're going to be able to sustain that, right? Yeah. There's no way that many people are going to hire us consistently month after month after month after year after year after year, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it gets really easy to doubt and look at like, oh my God, like we're not gonna have enough business to like keep flourishing and keep maintaining this pace, right?
Yeah.
But then I look at, like you were just saying, like how many people live in the greater Cleveland, Ohio, Northeast Ohio area, right?
Exactly.
Let's look at it. I'm curious.
Yeah, I think just the metropolitan area is like 300,000.
East Ohio population. So Northeast Ohio. This isn't even all of Ohio, which we could draw from all of Ohio realistically. 4,502,460 residents.
Yeah. And I'll say 85% of those have dogs.
I would say a lot of those have dogs.
Yeah.
And I would say that really in the end of the day, like how many clients do you need to sustain like a good company? Like we train, we figured this out before, I think. Let's say for board and train, 10 dogs a month. Sometimes it's 12 dogs a month, but let's say 10 times 12 months. That's 120 dogs. One-on-one lessons, let's say per quarter, let's just say 40, right?
Yeah.
So like 40 times 4 plus 120. If I can get 280 to 350 of those 4.5 million people to sign up for dog training every single year, I'm going to be just fine. And I would say my probability of getting what percentage is that? That's I don't even know how low of a percentage that is of 4.5 million.
Yeah.
I'm going to be just fine. And even putting it out that way, like looking at it that way, I think, why couldn't I do 500 a year? Why can't I do 600 a year? Why can't I do 1,000 a year?
Yeah.
Right? It puts you into a different state of mind where you start looking at it more pragmatically and more solution-oriented, solution-orientedness, whatever the right word is, of how do I grow it even bigger? Like if there's that many fucking people that are within a hour-and-a-half drive of us, how do I get in contact with those people? So that's really, you start looking at then, what's the solution that I need to solve? The solution I need to solve, which is how do I get myself in front of those people so they can become potential clients?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. And that's why,
and that is how you keep growing. That is how you stay growth mindset, is by looking at it instead of using it as because that problem, right? That's a mental roadblock of me being like, oh my God, we're not going to be able to sustain this amount of business forever and ever and ever until I ultimately retire at some point. Like there's no way we'll be able to do that. But in actuality, it's like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
I could triple that and sustain it until I fucking retire if I put myself into the right mindset to do that.
Yeah. And you still would never scratch all 4 million people,
Yeah.
And I think a good thing for you now, are you 9 years into this now? Technically, like in your dog training career?
as an owner of the dog training business, like 8.5 years.
8.5, yeah. And now, like, you're at the point where, I mean, you've already had it, but like returning clients, right? That have maybe gone through the rest of that dog's life, and now they have new puppies.
Bingo.
You got retaining clients on top of.
And that's how you make that 4.5 million number even bigger.
Yeah.
Right? Because you don't factor in 10 years from now when that person gets another dog, if they still live in the Cleveland area, that just tacks on top of that number.
Exactly.
So we say all this because like the mental roadblock is really the problem.
Yeah.
Right? Look at it solution oriented. Like if you're struggling and if your dog training business is not where you want it to be, right? It could be much bigger.
Yeah.
It can be, right? There's no questions asked. It can be much bigger than it is right now if you want it to be. And all you need to do is be willing to put in the extra work, face the boss, and not just put in the work, but understand and figure out the solution to your problem.
Yep.
How do you get yourself in front of more people? And how do you make sure your service is up to par so when you get yourself in front of those people, you can continue to grow?
Yeah. Dropping the knowledge right here.
Yeah, that's just a little bit of knowledge from a Forbes 30.
Yeah, we should talk about that now.
Let's go. So if you guys haven't seen, this was pretty exciting, actually. So yesterday I woke up and I found out that I made the Forbes 30 under 30 local list. Pretty fucking dope. So the local so listen, this isn't like Forbes 30 under 30 like fucking worldwide, because I think I looked at that list and it's like fucking Haley Bieber and like people like that, which obviously, I'm not going to be on that list. Right? But the 30 under 30 local is pretty cool. So it's a thing they did this year where they picked 10 cities throughout America, right? Cleveland was one of those 10 cities. And they picked 30 people that are under 30 years old in each one of those cities. That they think are crushing it in their prospective industry.
Yeah.
So I don't really know how the process worked. I know Kate nominated me for it. I think the staff kind of went in and nominated me for it, which obviously very, very appreciative of that. And then it went through like a voting process and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, like I said, yesterday I woke up and saw the article went live. It was pretty sweet.
Yeah. So out of that 385 million people, you got picked to be 30, however many cities they had, 300, I guess, people. You were picked to be one of those 300 people. That's
dope.
pretty fucking crazy, bro.
It's pretty dope.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, it's pretty cool. I don't put myself out there and fucking reach out to people and try to make these connections to get nominated for right now. I think they're doing Cleveland Scene Magazine, Best of Cleveland, and all this kind of stuff. I've never really put myself out there for those types of things. Mm-hmm. So this was a pretty cool one to just kind of get, you know. And to just kind of validate. Somebody called me from Greater Cleveland something yesterday, after it happened. They're like, "Can we get a?" They were getting little quotes from people and stuff, and they're like, "What does it mean to you to be on it and this and that?" And it's again, it's sweet, right? It's cool because it kind of just validates you're moving along, you're doing something with yourself. You know what I mean? I always tell everybody, I never went to college or growing up in high school and stuff like that. I was the fucking kid that everybody was probably man, this dude needs to figure out his shit. He's probably not gonna go anywhere in this and that.
Yeah.
And it's just I feel through all of that, I just was always keenly aware that I had internal motivation. It just was, I just had to figure out what to direct it towards, and once I found some things to direct it towards, at first it was music, and we wound up doing very well in that, right? No, that was really cool, right? Then we transitioned to dogs, and that continued to grow, and it's as soon as I got that passion locked on to something, it was sky's the limit, and it's really cool to see. I'm not gonna talk on it too much, but it was a dope thing to kind of have happen,
Yeah. Honestly, being in the whole music industry for a little bit, that taught me more about business ethics than anything else in life. Honestly.
Yeah.
It's because you have to market yourself. You have to buy your own apparel. You have to make sure your tour dates are going through, that you're going to the studio, and you have to manage all this. You have to buy a van. You have to stip in food rations. Yeah. It really is a great character builder.
Yeah, and it's funny. I joke that if I was back in the music industry now and trying to pursue that full time and looking at what we had. Man, I could think of 50 fucking things that could have, I really genuinely think, if I wanted to go back to that, if dog training fell apart or wasn't a thing anymore for me, I could fucking blow that shit up now, because I just look at the things certain bands are doing and stuff. Yeah. And getting back to our conversation we had last week at the beginning, which is learning from things you like and you don't like and all that kind of stuff. I feel there's so many things that you could do to really, really, really make sure that you succeed with something like that.
Yeah.
As opposed to just fucking winging it.
Yeah.
Well,
that was actually, Hermosi said something about that. He was like, so you guys all came here and you paid me to learn, right?
Yeah.
He's like, well, what's the definition of learning? It's doing something differently, And he's like, if you come here and then go back home and do the same things still over again, you'll learn nothing from me. And you threw all your money away. I was like, I mean, he's got a great point, because, all the time you watch these podcasts, gurus, videos, whatever. But if you're just that's cool, and then you never implement any of the little bit of knowledge that they give you in those, wow, you're just doing it to feel good at that point,
Yeah. No, I would completely agree.
Yeah. And then my last thing I was going to say is, because I made the Instagram for Coveted Apparel.
Yeah.
And I had a hard time finding the name, getting a username, because there was all these dead carcasses of people that have tried to make some.
This is an interesting point.
Yeah. All the dead carcasses of other coveteds that tried, and the last post was 4 years ago, 5 years ago. One was from 2014.
Yeah.
And you could see where people just tried and then realized the boss was too much for them.
Yeah. Yeah, you just got to commit,
Commit.
There's the world is available to you, Like if there's something you really like and you're willing to put in a little bit of work for it, like you could achieve things you never thought you'd be able to achieve.
Let me see. I want to give you this real quick. Coveted definition. Coveted, adjective, greatly desired or envied. I greatly desire it.
I like that.
Yeah. So.
Well, I'm excited to get some coveted apparel. So.
Yeah.
Let us know when it's available.
I will.
And we'll have everybody on this podcast buy some of that shit.
Oh, I would appreciate all of you.
Yeah.
Train your dogs in coveted apparel.
Yeah. Hell yeah. All right. So dog training related here. We're going to move on to, we got 2 different topics today to talk about. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about a little video that we got kind of popping off on TikTok right now.
All right. You never know what we're going to get into in the beginning of these,
Yeah, right.
You have to come with no expectations at first.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is a post of a session Michelle is doing with a puppy right now. Right?
Oh, okay.
And this was just a little clip that we posted, like 60 seconds long, and it's kind of been popping off. It's got almost 100,000 views and stuff like that.
Okay.
And it's really good, right? So the title of this is Using the Crate to Create Structure with Your Puppy. So let's watch it, and then we're going to talk about it a little.
All right, give it to me.
Philosophy with puppies in the crate is that the default is they're in the crate, and if they're not in the crate, you have to give me a really good reason why. Really good reasons why qualify as they're eating, they're going for a walk, we're doing training, they're actively playing, or they're intentionally out of the crate because we're settling together and we're teaching you how to relax with the family while we watch a movie or a TV show. If you are not directly interacting with your dog for an intentional purpose, they should not be loose. Because at this age, there's no productivity in that whatsoever. It just sets them up to have way too much freedom too fast. And that can start to compound on the behaviors you're starting to see where she's getting a little bit too big for her britches. And a lot of her aggression that you're seeing when she's sleeping, she might just be overexhausted, overstimulated, and be like, I'm done, everyone leave me alone. And that could very well be just because she doesn't feel like she has somewhere that she can just get away and decompress. Puppies at her age, they sleep like 20 hours a day.
Okay. So solid post, right?
Yeah.
So this is something that stirred up quite a bit of debate in the comment section, right?
Really?
And I would say the vast majority of the comments are people saying, I did this with my puppy. It helped so much. It helped my dog to, 1, really enjoy their crate. It helped 2, to make sure that we got past housebreaking issues and stuff like that really quick, because obviously we use the crate as the place where the dog generally won't go to the bathroom, so that they don't rehearse going to the bathroom in the house all the time.
Yeah.
3, they're sleeping all the time anyways, and, when they are tired, they generally get cranky, kind of like children. And it's like, they're like children from the sense of like when they get tired, they get more agitated to try to keep themselves awake and more antsy and more annoying and stuff like that, right? So it helped prevent a lot of that kind of stuff. And 3, when your dog is out of the crate, especially if we're not supervising them, that is prime time when dogs learn bad behavioral issues in the first place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
The more opportunity they have to be out, the more opportunity there is for them to rehearse things. And by implementing this protocol and having the dog out, obviously, but making sure it's only when we're able to directly supervise them, we're intentionally doing something with them, we're teaching them to chill, something like that. Sometimes they never learn these bad behavioral issues in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So that was like, I would say 50% of the comments. Maybe like 30% of the comments was the other side of the spectrum, which is, well, this is just teaching people to just... Well, one of the comments in particular on it was like...
Oh, boy.
Hold on, let me find it. Here we go. Yeah. I used to think this way, too. In reality, it's a great way to have a dog with no off switch. Puppy-proof your house. Stuff like that. Right? So people just saying that you're teaching people to over-crate their dogs, and, then some of the other comments were like, oh, so what do you want us to just keep the dog in the crate 24/7, things like that? And it's like, well, that's actually not what we said at all in the video, because we listed off about 25 different places to have the dog out of the crate.
Did you listen to that video?
And then the other 20% of the people, I would say, were basically just asking questions of like, okay, well, when do I phase away from this, right? So what I want to do is I want to take some time to kind of elaborate on this post a little bit. And I'm not going to speak for Michelle, because again, she, I'm sure, has her own takes and opinions on all this kind of stuff. But I'm going to look at this on how I would answer some of those types of questions and just react to the video as a whole. So first off, like I said, phenomenal advice. This is something that the advice I don't see given out enough, right? Yeah. A lot of times I see, puppy advice is solely like socializing the puppy and doing training and this and that. But in actuality, people don't realize how much goes into just living with your puppy early on in things, right? Now, getting to the first part of the conversation, which is overcrating, right? I think one of the missing pieces here of this conversation is just the fact that we're specifying really young dogs, right? Yeah. We're talking when you bring your 8-week-old puppy home, your 10-week-old puppy, your 12, 14, 16-week-old puppy, right? We're talking like the first month or so that you have your puppy home. Yeah. This is a very important protocol to implement with them, right? Those dogs are learning everything about what they're going to be able to get away with, what they're not going to be able to get away with, what's expected of them, what's not expected of them, all that kind of stuff in the house for the first 4 to 6 weeks. And I would even go as far as say, not even just puppies. If you adopt a new dog, you could implement a very similar protocol with them to make sure that you put them in a position to succeed. You make sure that they're not in a position to rehearse all of these unwanted behaviors all the time. Yeah. And you could teach them the ropes of the house and then slowly start to give them more and more freedom. Yeah. Right. So the argument that they're trying to say is by teaching them that there's no off switch. So what they're saying with that, and they're not totally wrong with this, but I'll explain how it doesn't apply to this situation. So what they're implying is that by overcrating the dog and only taking the dog out when you are intentionally working with them, so you take them out for a training session, right? You take them out for some play outside. You take them out to go for a walk. You take them out to play with the kids, anything like that. You are teaching the dog that when we come out of the crate, get really amped up because something fun is going to happen, right? And they're not wrong with that. One of the biggest techniques that used to be utilized a lot in the sport dog world, and I think still is to some extent, is what we call social isolation, right? Okay. So basically what that means is the dog is crated all the time, and the dog only comes out when they're going to work for like a week, right? And what happens is every time the dog comes out, it's their only chance to go fucking crazy, get the energy out, engage with us, stuff like that. So it makes them crave it more and more and more and create this association that you come out of the crate, be fucking on. Yeah. Right? Here is why that doesn't apply in this situation. That doesn't apply in this situation because, one, in the cases with an older dog or a working dog that you might be doing that, when you put the dog in the crate, they're not tired. They want to be out already, and they're craving to be out, right? With puppies, because they genuinely are sleeping for like 20 hours of the day, you put them in there. They might be displeased that you're putting them in there, but they're going to fall asleep pretty quickly because they need to be sleeping in those early stages with things, right? So you're not like holding them back per se, as forcing them into that state of rest that they need to be in anyways, like biologically, right? The second reason that doesn't apply is because Michelle specifically stated that one of the times that you should be taking your dog out is in situations where you are intentionally teaching them to relax. So the time we're taking them out is not always high energy play. It should be some high energy play, some eating and training. It should be some just relaxing and doing nothing. We used to talk about with Waffles when we were filming the podcast. I would back tie him to that table over there, and he would learn to just do absolutely nothing, right? That was an intentional time I was taking out. That's a situation like she described. And that was an hour to an hour and a half that he learned being out and doing absolutely nothing. AKA an off switch, right? So that doesn't apply to this situation. You're taking it a little bit too extreme when you're going that route, right? Now, again, as you deal with older dogs, you do want to be careful to not overcrate too much, obviously. But any of this, like, this gets to the next question, which is like, how long do we do this for, right? When do we start to wean off of that? It shouldn't be forever, right? This shouldn't be you're doing this for 6 months of the dog's life, where the dog is in the crate for 15 hours a day, 20 hours a day, whatever it may be, right? Yeah. It should be for the first couple weeks when you bring the puppy home, and then we start to transition to giving them more and more and more and more freedom as we start to establish the skills that we need to give them the freedom, right? Because here's the thing, right? If I get a new puppy and I start giving them a lot of freedom really quickly, but I don't have the training or the communication established to guide their behavior effectively, what's going to happen is the dog is going to rehearse unwanted behaviors. There's nothing that we can do about it. And then they start learning bad habits and developing poor behavior when they're out of the crate. Yeah. Where if in the first week or two, they're only out when we're training, I focus on teaching the ability to tell the dog yes and no. I start patterning in some calmness in situations like that. And then I start extending that from maybe an hour of them out of the crate to 2 hours out of the crate, right? And 2 hours out of the crate to 2.5 hours out of the crate. Yeah. When they inevitably try to do something wrong, like one time we were up here, Waffles tried to like chew on the thing or something like that, right? I'm able to intervene and stop it and communicate with him. That's something we don't want. And then as he learns from that and he doesn't do those things anymore, I can continue extending that time more and more and more and more, right? Yep. So the short answer is this is something you do while you're establishing the skills you need to give the dog more freedom out of the crate. Yeah. Right? Then the other answer to that question is you give them more freedom when they earn the freedom. Yeah. Right? So I look at with younger dogs or a new dog I'm bringing into the house, privileges we might give them, like being out of the kennel, like sleeping in the bedroom with us, like any of those types of things, as privileges they could earn through showing us that when we leave them out for extended periods of time, that they don't make incorrect choices because we've guided their behavior, essentially, right? Yeah. So crate time, right? Things like that, back ties, like I used to do with Waffles a lot, stuff like that. They're management techniques, right? They're management techniques while you're working through the training process, and that's the missing link people obviously like aren't getting. Some people take these like short videos like this, like so at face value of like we posted another one the other day of Bridget talking. Here, I'll show you this one also. Okay. Hang on. This one.
Correct that he's anxious. Like you can't correct that he's anxious. Something correctable is touching the center console because he's breaking the boundary of the hammock anyway. And if you were to get in an accident and he were up there, he's going through the windshield. So that's a correctable thing, and it's a little bit more clear because then he knows, okay, if my paws touch that, I'm gonna get firm correction. Or if they're messing with this and start to roll the windows down, I call this the windowsill, I'll start correcting them. Some people will do like down stays in the car, but I feel like you have to be pretty practiced at a down. And almost just correct the side effects that he's having. The pacing, the touching of the car interior, it's an instability. Like he feels nervous and that's valid and he's allowed to feel anxious. How can we help you feel better?
So again, she's working with a client, right, who has their dog in a car hammock in the back seat, right? And the dog has issues with trying to crawl into the front seat and get on she calls it the windowsill, so like the armrest in the back seat and all those types of things. And she's talking about stopping those things to make it safer for the dog. Yeah. And somebody commented on it and they're like, dogs should only ever be crated when in the car. And I was like, okay, well, sure, a crate is a very safe alternative, right? Yeah. I think crating dogs in the car, if you have the ability to do so, is a fantastic idea. Yeah. Right? But there is such a large percentage of the population that literally does not have a car big enough to put a fucking crate in it for your dog. Right? Exactly. Like that's reality. Yeah. Right? So like what do we do then? Right? Like what do you do? Should we tell the person, well, you got to buy a new car. You can't train your dog. You got to buy a new car. Yeah. Right? Like that's obviously not going to happen. Yeah. Right? Like, no way. So I explained that. She's like, well, you should have at least touched on the point that crates are a much safer alternative than the dog being loose in the backseat. I was like, okay, but like this is a 60-second clip where we're working with an individual client on their individual situation, coaching them through how to safely have their dog in their car in the way that they travel with their dog. Yeah. Right? And she's like, well, don't you care about... oh, Lord. Don't you care about giving proper information to people? I was like, yes, I care about giving proper information to people, right? But we don't also give all of our information for free. Actually, we do. Like, realistically, we give all our information for free. But, like, if you're somebody who's trying to get free information of, like, exactly what to do with your dog, you're going to have to do a little digging in our short form and our long form content to get all of the pieces of the puzzle. And that's kind of the price you have to pay of not wanting to spend money on a dog trainer.
100%. Yeah.
Right? Huh? Now, the people that do hire us, we will look at their situation and give them every bit of information that possibly will apply to their situation to help them make the correct choices and navigate that kind of stuff because we're getting paid for it, right?
Yep.
And this just gets to the problem of, like, people look at these videos and they think that if you are going to put out and this is physically impossible to do, right? If you're going to put out content giving anybody any sort of, like, educational insight or tips or pointers or this or that you have to give every possible freaking scenario and possibility and, like, A, B, C, D, you know what I mean? Like, in every option and stuff like that, you got to package that all up, or else you're just doing a disservice. And it's like, guys, let's take a chill pill for a second. Right? Like again, I live by, like, there's a lot you can get accomplished with, like, free videos, like YouTube videos, this, that. But, like, social media is for entertainment purposes. Social media is to market yourself to people so that people can ultimately, like, I'm not in the business of training people's dogs via social media.
Yeah.
I'm in the business of marketing my services via social media so you could hire me to then train your dog and give you all of the information. And there are just so many people that just, like, can't grasp that.
No.
They just, like, can't wrap their head around it.
Not at all.
Right? So getting back to the car issue, right? Yeah, there are plenty of dogs that come in that like travel in a large SUV and they're not a huge dog. And I say, you know what? Just get a kennel. Put a kennel back there and put them in it. It's going to be safer. It's going to be easier.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And they do that, right? And if they have the ability to do that, great. But there's other people that literally can't do that. Right? Like, we travel with all 4 of our dogs sometimes in my wife's car. And we can't fit 4 crates in the car. So guess what? Some of the dogs are loose in the car. And that's okay.
They'll be fine.
They'll be just fine.
Yeah.
And listen, like, you know, like, if you're, like, we could say the same thing about people. Like, if you get in a serious car accident, right? Like, you're going to get seriously injured, right? Unless you have this, like, crazy freaking roll cage contraption inside of your car. But the seatbelt itself is not the safest, you know?
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
It's like you work with what you got.
Yeah, 100%.
So those are a couple videos that we've been putting out. Like I said, the Michelle one is really great. The puppy thing, there's just so much with puppies, and she's been doing a really awesome job lately, like articulating the puppy side of things, because she's been working with a lot of them lately. And I think they did a couple podcasts on that that you guys can go ahead and listen to. Which brings me to my next point: more updates on things. So we officially made the I don't want to say made the decision, but we moved forward with going all in on the Miracle Canine Staff podcast. So for you guys that don't know, they've got a podcast. They're crushing it. They're like 26 or 27 episodes in now at this point. They do it every week as well. Nice. And up until this point, we've been posting them as like bonus episodes on like this Spotify channel. We made our own Spotify channel for it. So everybody can look at it. Let me go ahead and pull it up here. The Miracle Canine Show. So everybody go to the Miracle Canine Show. Look at this. 26 episodes, all on there.
Let me see that photo.
See that?
Hey, look at that.
Hey, let's go. Miracle Canine Staff Podcast. And it is the Miracle Canine Show. So just search the Miracle Canine Show and give them a follow. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. It's all on YouTube also, obviously.
Nice.
But we're going to be going all in on that. I'm actually getting ready to, because right now they've been doing everything with like a really horrible mic setup. So the audio quality is like not anywhere near as good as it could be.
Yeah.
I'm getting them set up with the good stuff.
There you go.
It's going to be legit. So I want everybody to go on there and start following that as well right now.
Do it.
So that's going on. And then I think we got one last point to go over here. I got a message from somebody today. Hang on. Let me pull it up here. There it is.
Okay.
All right. So let me read this. Hey, I was wondering, any chance you could touch on a topic in an upcoming podcast? What people are calling old school methods, such as the Keeler method. Everyone deserves the right to educate on all kinds of dog training and make their own opinions and modifications. I was super disappointed. I went to search YouTube and Google for some sources on the method. Dave from The Art of Dog said everyone should read up on it. I know a little, but haven't read the book, etc. I was so disappointed. Everything that popped up was what not to do in dog training one-on-one and old school methods that will ruin your dog. Like, what the fuck? Old school is where everything stemmed from. Without it, we would never be as advanced as we are today. So I'm actually frustrated. I may have to order an actual book or visit the local library. Any chance you could talk about a few old school tracking methods, the pros and cons, and maybe examples of how they're applied? I can't be the only one, and some people, owners, trainers, likely don't even know what they don't know, and we all deserve to know. Okay, so let's talk about old school dog training.
We haven't even talked about that term, Keeler method, in like
It's been a while.
100 episodes probably.
I still want to buy the book and go over it at some point.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Maybe I'll do that when we get off. Okay, so old school methods, generally speaking, when people refer to old school methods, they are referring to the Keeler method of dog training.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I'm going to get into this a little bit. I'll be the first to say, when you get into like all of the details of the Keeler method of dog training, like I don't know all of it. I know, the general concepts and stuff like that. But Keeler was like one of the first people that really like pioneered and put together a system of dog training.
Yeah.
Right? So it wasn't just like the like intuitive, you just kind of know the dog and like the Cesar Millan stuff. It wasn't like, at the time, like the reward-based stuff wasn't super popular or anything like that. It was just a basic method of getting a dog to be submissive to you, compliant and obedient, right?
Yeah.
So what everybody liked about it was, again, the fact that it was a system, right? It was a straightforward system that you could follow step by step with pretty much any dog, and the results are generally going to be pretty consistent. Now, when I say the results, I mean like the physical thing the dog is doing, right? The dog will learn how to sit. The dog will learn how to stay. The dog will learn how to come. The dog will learn how to walk nice on a leash, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Where it kind of fell apart was that the whole system was completely and utterly centered around just forcing the dog to do stuff, right? Additionally, getting back to like not caring a whole lot about like the dog's state of mind and all of that kind of stuff, it generally was very heavy-handed as well.
Yeah. Is this what they called the yank and crank?
Yank and crank method, old school method, all that kind of stuff. It's all the same shit. Now, there are a lot of Keeler diehards out there, like to this day, like guys that are like a little bit older, 50s, 60s, stuff like that, that are still following the Keeler method of dog training, right? They still do it with every single one of the dogs that they work with.
Yeah.
And I've seen online these guys have debates with people that say, hey, listen, it's not as harsh as you think. Right?
Yeah.
Now, again, getting back to like, I've never taken a dog through the whole Keeler method of dog training, right? Like, I don't know that much about it past just like basic concepts and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I look at this the same way as like people that give you a hard time over just prong collar use and e-collar use in general, right? A lot of people think like because you're using a prong collar or because you're using an e-collar that it only ever is used at the absolute highest motivation possible, right? Which we know is not true. So if it's true in that context, we could take the methods, the Keeler methods, right? And we could arguably say if we have a very submissive dog, right? Or a little bit maybe of a nervous dog or a sensitive dog or things like that, that hypothetically you probably could work them through the Keeler method of dog training and get away with not needing to use a whole lot of pressure and then like working through it just fine, right? Yeah. I think people's issue with it stems less from the actual training, and I think it stems more from the state of mind of when people are people associate old school dog training with just not caring about the dog. Right? Yeah. They associate it with the dog has to be compliant to us at all costs. And that's where you get into some of the things that, the Keeler method of dog training or old school dog trainers. I'll talk more on just like old school dog trainers as opposed to that specific method because, again, I don't know all of the nuanced details of it and stuff like that. But old school dog training in general was very much of the mindset of like, if the dog does something wrong or the dog acts aggressively or this or that, even if it's something minor, it absolutely is punished to the most extreme, right? We're really getting on these dogs over this kind of stuff. And sometimes, with things that I might let slide, right? Or I might look at and be like, well, this is more of a socialization issue, or I would address this way, or maybe we've got to use a little counter conditioning here because the dog's not really making the mistake. They're just showing that they're uncomfortable. Those types of things, that mindset goes out the window, right? It's just this dog growled, right? Or this dog did this, or this dog did that, and we need to hammer it away, right? Additionally, where you get a lot of the flack on like the Keeler method of dog training is where you get into like some of their approaches with dealing with aggression and stuff like that. They had some pretty firm mentalities behind, things like a lot of dog trainers will talk about how people used to do like helicopters and stuff like that, where people would literally pick dogs up in the air with like a choke chain and like swing them around and stuff like that, and like do all sorts of terrible things that obviously like we have way better ways of correcting a dog than doing any of that kind of stuff at this point. They had a method that was like, I believe it was like a piece of hose with like a dowel rod in it that they would take and they would crack the dog over the snout with it if they did something wrong, right? There was a lot more harsh of methods surrounding a lot of this kind of stuff, right? And I think that's where, most of the dog training public at this point can look at all of that and be like, again, there's probably much better ways to handle these types of things than back in the day, right? So that's generally what it is right now. Now, where is it good, right? Where is it important? I think it's very important to understand how they took some of these dogs through the system as far as, the leash handling skills, the shaping of positions, all of that kind of stuff, because there is a lot of times that we've taken dogs that we've worked with that have zero food drive, right? They're not motivated by anything. We need to just get them into a compliant state of mind. And you could kind of lean back on some of those like old school methods of just leash handling skills, right?
Sure.
Teaching the dog the basics of leash pressure stuff, right? All of that, giving leash corrections for things, stuff like that, right? And you could make a lot of progress with some dogs early on in things. But it's just, things have evolved over time, right? Like back in the day, dog training was very rough, right? It was just the dog has to listen. The dog has to be respectful, and the dog's going to get in trouble if they're not listening and if they're not respectful, and that's it, right? And we've luckily moved in a direction where we could still look at dogs and say, this dog needs to listen to me, right? Like, I'm a firm believer that if I've got a dog, right, the dog has to be compliant. If I have a dog that I don't have any control of, if I take it out in public, or if I have a dog that is just, there's things I cannot do with them because they don't let me do it, I think that's a big problem in dog ownership, right? But we could also look at, if I'm going to hold them to that standard, I'm going to make sure I provide a quality of life for them that is keeping their emotional well-being in mind, right? Getting back to like topics like socialization and building motivation and play and like all of those things that really just were like not on the radar with a lot of old school methods. We could put those things in the mix with it, and obviously, be much further along because of it. And then I would say the other big problem a lot of people had with some old school methods was back in the day, they used choke chains for everything, right? Now, not that I necessarily have a massive issue with training tools or anything like that, right? A slip lead is basically a cloth choke chain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the fact that we were giving these like really, really harsh corrections with a choke chain, where now we would use a pinch collar instead. A choke chain is a much less safe tool, right? So the way it's designed is when it pulls, it tightens, obviously, right? And where that movement point is, all of the pressure when you pull that leash goes into that one spot. So you run a lot higher of a risk of like doing damage to the dog's neck or esophagus or things like that. So a lot of people don't like that, where pinch collars, the way they're designed, is not really to choke, right? Or to put all the pressure in one spot. They're designed to distribute pressure evenly around the neck so we can get away with actually using less pressure than we would if we were using a choke chain, which also makes it safer and makes it a little bit more gentle on the dog than at that point. So that's kind of the old school 101. I mean, as far as the tracking and stuff like that, I don't know a whole lot about tracking. I've never really done a whole lot with tracking. That was never in the sport that I did or anything like that. But I would just recommend, just if you want to learn about it, like go buy the book. There is the Keeler Method of Dog Training is a book you can go out and buy, right? And like I said, I will probably be buying it. We could kind of review it a little bit on the podcast.
Yeah.
But it's people just like to hate old shit. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like, it's no different than in the world right now. People like to hate old ideas and old concepts and old ways that we used to look at the world and stuff like that. And yeah, we can look at some things and say, okay, that's a little dated, right?
Yeah.
When we were reading the hunting dog book, or we were reading The Art of Raising a Puppy and stuff like that, like there are aspects of all of those books that we can look at and be like, all right, well, that's a little dated, right? But that's just the way they did it back then with the knowledge that they had, right? And I'm not saying it's the greatest thing in the world by any means from today's standards, but back then it was the norm. Yeah. Right? And we could grow and evolve from it and still respect where it came from. Yeah. Right? And respect the good ideas that came from it. You know, it's funny, right? Like, so like philosophers and people that are making movement in the world and stuff like that, if you were to look at all of their ideas and put every one of their ideas out on paper, you probably can look at 50% or more of those ideas and be like, those are trash. Terrible, right? Yep. But that like 1% idea that made a huge difference in the world, that's massive. Yeah. Right? And what happens is then the next person comes around and they take that one really good idea and they build on it, right? And they make it even better, but still 50% or more of their ideas are probably still going to be trash. Yeah. Right? And that's how change happens. It doesn't happen from one person that knows everything and every one of their ideas is the greatest idea that's ever existed on the face of the planet. It's incremental change over time of one person coming forward with one great thing after all of the hard, bad stuff that they went through to get to it, right? And then you keep piggybacking off of it. It kind of gets back to the original comment we had when we started this entire podcast, which is there's so many hurdles along the road that you have to go to make like advancement or do something really good in life. And if we equate it to something like dog training, right? Like Keeler brought forward an idea of creating a system, systematizing things so your everyday owner can have a well-behaved dog. And he had some loose strands in there, right? That we could say, we don't need those. We can get rid of those. But these concepts we can build off of. And that's what happened in dog training. And that's how we got to modern day prong collar training, e-collar training, which is far more gentle than it ever was and still gets you the same results of a really well-trained dog, is it was piggybacked off of the methods that Keeler brought to the table. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to know where you came from. Where did dog training come from? Even every little bit of it came from that at some point, And I was kind of thinking about it. Do you think it was more of a harsher feel? I mean, I don't know when Keeler's training methods came out. Do you kind of have an idea, or like how old is it? Well, we're going to find out.
Ooh, here it is. Keeler method of dog training. 1946.
Okay. So
a long fucking time ago.
Yeah. So like back then, I wonder if it's to equate, because back then, I mean, that was before it was like the household dog, right? It was the farm dog, right? It was like the working dog.
They were just dogs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they weren't really our pets.
There was no,
right?
Yeah, it
they
wasn't
were
really
dogs.
pets. Yeah. So I wonder if that's why it was more of a harsher approach, because it was more of like, hey, this is my farm dog. This is the working animal, or whatever. Like they didn't have such a stature back then. So it was just, I need to train this dog so it can work for me.
Yeah. Yeah. and again, like we looked at them as just dogs. It's just an animal. Right? Like we wouldn't think twice about it. If you told me this is a funny comparison. If you gave me a worm and told me I needed to train this worm, I probably wouldn't be thinking too much about the emotional well-being of the worm. Yeah. Right? Like if a parent sees their child playing with worms in the yard and like squishing them and stuff, or ants, I don't think a parent would think twice about it. But if a parent saw a dog or a child playing around with and messing with and squishing dogs, they would have a big problem with that. Yeah. That's because we look at the animals as two very different things. Yeah. One is a part of our family, a companion, right? The other is literally just some fucking animal. Yeah. Right? And back in the day, dogs were much more in that direction than they are right now. And again, we could evolve from that, right? We can look at dogs now and look at how wonderful they are and look at them and understand that we could give them rights, right? From the standpoint of like cruelty and how we need to care for them and stuff like that and enforce those types of things. But back in the day, that was not something that was on people's radar.
No. I was thinking too, because Devin is into horses. I watched a lot of it, but if people train dogs like they still train horses to this day, oh my God,
yeah,
people would lose their shit.
Yeah.
But it's a
well, and there's movements in the horse world too, though, of like force-free horse trainers and stuff like that are against all of that kind of stuff. And horses is another thing that's moved further and further. Again, I'm sure there's still people that train very old school with horses.
Oh yeah.
Right, but like that's definitely had a big evolution as well.
Yeah. They've changed like the mouth bits, and the spurs aren't like the old West spurs anymore, where you like really dig in. Yeah. But that you still kind of use the crops every once in a while and stuff like that. But I mean, could you imagine if someone comes into your training facility and train them to sit in your crop? People would lose their shit,
Sure. Yeah. And it's tough, because I think a lot of people expect dog trainers to just fucking write off all that shit. Like Keeler method of dog training was bullshit. It's so harsh and abusive on animals and this and that. It's like, again, like I could disagree with so much of it, but still respect how it played a role in how modern dog training came about.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's when we looked it up, it was like the 50s, 60s when the dog
46.
When the household dog became a thing. Like the nuclear family, nuclear family.
Nuclear.
Like,
you're talking there was a time when
when it became like a
did dogs become
household pets.
Household pet.
It'll probably be like in 3000 BC.
Yeah, that's what it says. Between 27,000 and 40,000 years ago. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah. But I feel like that was the movement when dad went to work, the wife was at home and had the kids and the one dog in the dog house in the back.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we're going to find an answer to that. Because all of these say 40,000 years ago, and they're talking about like pharaohs and shit.
Yeah, yeah, but when it became a household norm, I think was like the 50s and 60s, and that's probably when people started to have a different outlook on that method.
Very interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. But yeah, no, I mean, you just need to understand and learn from that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like we study history to learn from our mistakes, right? So we could study the history of dogs to learn from mistakes also.
Yeah.
And if anything, you're going to learn a lot and be able to evolve dog training even more by understanding and having a little bit of a respect for it,
Yeah, exactly.
So that's my thoughts on old school dog training. Like I said, I am going to buy that book and we'll start reviewing it on the podcast.
Yeah, we haven't done a book in a while.
No, we haven't. That might be a good one to do.
Yeah,
talk a little bit about.
Cool.
All right, guys. Well, until next time. Enjoy yourselves.
Have a great day.